Well, the war on drugs seen as a failure as South American countries blame U.S. drug policies for fueling cartel violence. But for some industries, the war on drugs is a profitable business. As the battle to crack down on minor drug offenses rages on, some companies are cashing in and getting rich. And it's these companies that pump enormous amounts of money into lobbying Congress so that drug policies continue to work in their favor. So who's benefiting? Contractors. The government spent over $6 billion on private contractors between 2005 and 2009. But that's not all. The drug testing industry is another one that's cashing in. The alcohol industry, private prisons, and drug rehabs are all reeling in the dough over the war on drugs. So who is really benefiting from the war on drugs, and will the U.S. change its failed policies? To discuss this, earlier I was joined by Mike Riggs. He's an associate editor at Reason magazine, and I asked him where the billions of dollars allocated to the war on drugs actually go. Take a listen.
At the top, it's going to enforcement efforts, so, police budgets, municipal, state police budgets, federal police budgets. The DEA, for instance, has 10,000 employees, offices in over 60 countries. And then as it sort of trickles down, as you see the web spread, I mean, it goes everywhere. It goes to rehabilitation facilities, which are increasingly becoming an alternative to incarceration. And that's not, they're not an alternative because by chance or by luck. They're an alternative to incarceration because addiction treatment facilities are saying, make us an alternative to incarceration. The drug testing industry, again, because you're not allowed to have marijuana in your system at all, and it can interfere with like workers' compensation benefits if somebody's injured on the job and they've had marijuana in their system. So these companies spring up to develop technology to test for drugs. And then you can look at obviously the alcohol industry, the private prison industry. It goes out though. There's more. Their trial lawyers enjoy this sort of the benefits of this. Tobacco companies do, and then military and defense contractors. So it's really everybody's getting in on it. And I would go so far as to say that we spend tens of billions directly and maybe tens of billions more even indirectly on fighting the drug war.
And so we are spending billions, and all these industries are profiting from this.
Oh,
but is it money well spent? Are we seeing any of this drug use curb within the U.S.?
No, it's not. And I think what we're seeing, what the trend is going to be is, as we shift to a public health approach, you're going to see less incarceration in prisons, but you're not going to see less damage done to people's reputations, their work life, their families. I mean, being forced to go to a rehab facility, those are expensive. They can sometimes have a waiting line. They're not always the most effective thing. I'm not sure that that's going to be great for people's freedom. Having to get drug tested regularly as part of your probation or as part of your punishment, I'm not sure that that's great for America's freedom. I think what we're just going to see is a sort of softer form of paternalism in the war on drugs. Maybe less no-knock raids, but no less interference in people's lives and what they do in the privacy of their own homes.
Meanwhile, the war on drugs isn't stopping people from doing drugs,
Absolutely.
As you just said. Instead, what it seems to be doing is just packing our jails with more people on even minor drug violations. And of course, who is benefiting from this? As you mentioned, the private prison industry.
Definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about how they are benefiting from having people locked up?
Yeah, I mean, so what they're promising shareholders is what their offer is as states continue to pack their prisons, the United States incarcerates more people than any other country in the world. Prisons in the United States just aren't built to handle this capacity. Every state in the country has prisons that are way over capacity. So what groups like the GEO group of Florida and Corrections Corps of America, what they're offered to do is they build these prisons really cheaply to house overflow inmates, and for the most part they're low-level offenders. They're nonviolent offenders, which means that they're drug users. And CCA said in their annual report in 2010 to shareholders, they said there are some things that are beyond our control, such as how states decide to handle the drug war. If they were to decriminalize or legalize or decide that they want lighter punishments, that's going to hurt our bottom line. And so on the one hand, in that report, they say these things are sort of beyond our control, but on the other hand, they have spent a significant amount of money lobbying for harsh laws, for 3 strikes laws, for mandatory minimums. And they're doing it because there's an incentive to lobby for those kinds of laws.
Now, President Obama recently returned from the Summit of the Americas in Colombia, and the president of Colombia and other South American countries urged him to change drug policies. One thing that they even recommended was the legalization of certain drugs. President Obama wasn't exactly on board. Here's what he had to say on the subject.
I don't mind a debate around issues like decriminalization. I personally don't agree that that's a solution to the problem. But I think that given the pressures that a lot of governments are under here, under-resourced, overwhelmed by violence, it's completely understandable that they would look for new approaches, and we want to cooperate with them. I don't think that legalization of drugs is going to be the answer.
So he is facing this pressure now from the presidents of these South American countries because they're saying it's fueling drug violence in their area, and they're pushing for reform because simply, I mean, as we've seen, the war on drugs isn't working. And President Obama, he's saying legalization isn't the solution, but you didn't hear him propose any other alternatives, any other possible solutions. So if not legalization, what are some of the possible alternatives?
Well, looking back at the 2012 drug policy control report that the White House released last week, their idea of solutions is basically drug courts and pushing people into rehab instead of incarcerating them. I don't think this changes. I mean, that is a strategy. The White House strategies, what they've decided to do they're calling innovative, it's not really innovative, is for users. The White House still does not have a solution to black market violence, which we're seeing in Central America and South America. You know, I mean, some countries are even refusing to participate in our drug war program because they're so terrified of this and the ramifications it's had. Colombia is very slow. I mean, Colombia is touted as a model because of the Colombia plan in the 1990s, the way the United States went after cartel leaders down there, is that Colombia is the model going forward. Well, Colombia no longer wants to fight the drug war. They're not interested in this anymore. Felipe Calderon is slowly, Mexico's president, has slowly been walking back his support. And the Obama administration might not want to talk about legalization, but they have literally nothing else to talk about. They have no other proposals. And this whole idea that that the drug war in Central and South America is underfunded is a complete myth. I mean, we allotted $1.4 billion to Mexico for the Merida Initiative to help them fight the drug war. And that money has led to increased violence, 50,000 deaths since 2006. And as well as human rights abuses by Mexico police.
And how difficult would it be, Mike, to make changes to these policies that seem to be failing when there are so many businesses making so much money off of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big question. I'm not sure that drug policy reform advocates have moved this far in the debate yet, but what we're going to be looking at is how do we answer the question of what kind of jobs program is the drug war? And essentially that's what it is now. It's not a public safety campaign. It doesn't, any public safety that taking a drug dealer off the street is completely eliminated by the fact that you're encouraging this competition to move in with violence. So it's what do you do with the 10,000 agents that work for the DEA? What do you do with over 1.2 million law enforcement officers in the United States who either are, you know, some of them are assigned to the drug war, but many, many more get their funding from asset forfeiture when they conduct a drug raid and they confiscate houses, cars, money. So the question becomes, like, if we decide to end the war on drugs, which I think it's inevitable, it's not working, and you know, for the first time in America's history, we have a majority of people who want to legalize marijuana, for instance. So the question becomes, what do you do with all these people, and how do you reallocate those resources to where they're being, you know, productive and less harmful towards Americans? And I don't have an answer to that question, but I think that's where the debate is moving.
And we are seeing that he has more pressure on him to do something, and it's been a decade since this war on drugs has been dragging on. How long can it drag on before some real changes are made?
Yeah. You know, that's a great question. We have 16 states with medical marijuana now, plus the District of Columbia. Colorado and Washington both have legalization efforts on their ballots in November. So I don't think this is going to come from the top down. I think what we're going to see more of is we're going to see more states legalize or decriminalize, and then we're not going to see any bad effects from that. You know, we're not going to see an increase in car accidents. We're not going to see an increase in violence. We're not going to see an increase in, you know, youth truancy or bad grade, anything like that. And I think once those cases start to make themselves, and for instance, we already have Portugal as a great example of what decriminalization can do. I think once just that is, you know, the slow march of history will eventually change policy for us.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike, for coming on the show. That was Mike Riggs, Associate Editor of Reason Magazine.
Petitioning Jacksonville City Council. Decriminalize marijuana in Duval County, Florida. Route 420. The city of Jacksonville has spent nearly $100,000 in 2017 alone arresting citizens for marijuana. We should urge our city to adopt the same ordinances that so many other large municipalities and counties in Florida have done already. City councils that have voted to adopt issuing civil fines and decriminalize the act of possessing less than 20 grams of marijuana. Miami-Dade, June 2015, Miami Beach, July 2015, Hallandale Beach and Key West, August 2015, West Palm Beach, September 2015, Broward County and Walton Manors, November 2015, Palm Beach County, December 2015, Tampa, March 2016, Orlando, May 2016, Osceola County, June 2016, Alachua County, August 2016, Port Richey, September 2016. Never in modern history has there existed greater public support for ending the nation's nearly century-long experiment with marijuana prohibition. The continued criminalization of adult marijuana use is out of step with the views of adults throughout America, 89% of whom endorse medical marijuana and 60% of whom now endorse the outright legalization of recreational cannabis. In the Florida election of 2016, Amendment 2 was widely supported statewide with 71.3% approval, however Duval County had even greater support at 74.5% approval, Politico.com. I just ask that you help utilize your presence and audience and help save the hard-working taxpayers of this fine city hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in unnecessary expenses. As one of the major cities of this great state, why is it that we should fall behind our counterparts in recognizing this? Ask our city to move to decriminalize as have so many other areas in Florida have. Free up our officers' time to address more serious items facing the city. 500 plus arrests this year alone for marijuana, that is 1,000s of man-hours not spent on patrolling. There have been more arrests this year in Jacksonville alone for marijuana possession than many other violent crimes combined. Keep our judicial system cleared of small frivolous cases. Thank you. FB Group, Route 420.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done... Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't
Wow.
been on a bike before, we're
Sheriff's
just
getting a little too pushy.
is
You
the
work
hard
for
part.
us, Sheriff.
In
Just
keeping
keep that in mind. At one time, we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheep up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month. Oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now, you know, $1 a day, I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head, help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.